Welcome to the Scenic Bookcast. Today we're doing a deep dive into, well, one of the most successful books ever published, Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
It's a classic for a reason.
Absolutely. And our mission today is pretty simple. We want to pull out the core philosophy, the practical principles that made this thing an international bestseller for, what, almost a century now?
Just about. It's incredible.
We're trying to give you a shortcut to what Carnegie called human engineering.
It's a great term. And you know, the book had such a humble start. It was first published back in 1937.
Really?
Yeah, just a small run, maybe 5,000 copies.
Yeah.
But it just exploded. Became an overnight sensation because it was tapping into this really profound human need.
And now it's sold. What are the numbers? Tens of millions?
Tens of millions, yeah. It's been translated into 36 languages, and it's basically never been out of print. It's more than a book. It's like a manual for life.
Okay, let's unpack that, because a book from the 30s still topping bestseller lists, that means its ideas have to be timeless.
They are.
Carnegie's first courses, starting way back in 1912, they were just about public speaking. But he saw that the adults in his classes needed something more. He called it the fine art of getting along with people. He figured out the real problem wasn't just communication, it was connection.
Precisely. I mean, dealing with people is probably the biggest challenge any of us face, whether you're, running a company or just trying to navigate your family.
Right.
And Carnegie's insight wasn't just a hunch. It was backed by some serious data. Research from the Carnegie Foundation found something pretty staggering.
And this is the key to the whole book, isn't it?
It is. The research showed that even in super technical jobs like engineering, about 85% of a person's financial success is due to their skill in human engineering.
85%?
Yeah. Their personality, their ability to lead people, only 15% came from their actual technical knowledge.
Just think about that for a second. You can be the smartest person in the room, the top expert, but if you can't connect to persuade, you're missing the biggest piece of the puzzle.
The dominant factor.
It makes the John D. Rockefeller quote makes so much sense. He said the ability to deal with people is a purchasable commodity he'd pay more for than anything else under the sun.
And that's exactly why Carnegie wrote the book. A huge survey found that the number 2 thing adults cared about right after health was how to understand people.
How to get along, how to win them over.
Exactly. And since there wasn't a good practical book on it, he decided to make one himself.
Which brings us right to part 1, the fundamental techniques in handling people. This is the foundation.
The bedrock, yeah. If you get these 3 wrong, nothing else is going to work.
And the first principle is, don't criticize, condemn, or complain.
And this goes deep into psychology. Carnegie just hammers this point home. We are not dealing with creatures of logic.
No.
We are dealing with creatures of emotion. We're full of prejudices. We're driven by pride, by ego. And criticism, it wounds that pride instantly.
He uses the example of Thomas Hardy, the novelist. He was so crushed by criticism, he just gave up writing fiction forever.
It just makes people defensive. They justify themselves. They don't improve.
Okay, but I have to ask, for anyone in a leadership position listening, isn't avoiding criticism just avoiding necessary feedback? How do you manage a team if you can't point out what's wrong?
That's the nuance, isn't it? It's the difference between criticism and, say, a suggestion. He isn't saying to ignore mistakes.
Okay.
He's saying to get rid of the judgment, the condemnation. Instead of condemning, you have to try and understand them. Because, as he says, to know all is to forgive all.
So it's about empathy over judgment.
Exactly. Understanding totally disarms that emotional reaction that criticism triggers.
That makes sense. So that's what we need to avoid. What's the positive side? What should we be doing?
That's principle 2. Give honest and sincere appreciation. Carnegie is very clear that we all have this deep craving for appreciation.
He calls it the legal tender that all souls enjoy.
I love that phrase. It's so true. The only way to get someone to do something willingly is by making them want to do it.
And the classic example here is Charles Schwab, the steel guy. He was paid over $1 million a year, which was just an insane amount of money back then.
Astronomical. And he said himself that plenty of people working for him knew more about making steel than he did.
So why is huge salary?
His ability to deal with people. He relied on a spirit of approval, not criticism. He knew that people work harder and better when they feel valued, not when they feel judged.
So praise isn't just a nice little gesture. When it's sincere, it's a huge performance driver.
A massive one.
Which flows right into the third technique. Arouse in the other person an eager want.
This one might be the most strategic of all. You have to stop thinking about what you want and focus completely on what they want.
Like the example with getting your kids not to smoke. Don't preach about health.
Right, don't make it about your fears. Show them how smoking will stop them from making the basketball team.
So if I'm trying to sell something or pitch a new idea to my boss, I shouldn't be talking about the benefits for me.
Not at all.
I need to frame it as, how does this help them get what they want?
Exactly. You're positioning your idea as the solution to their problem, the means to their end. The person who can do that has the whole world with them. The person who can't, well, they walk a very lonely road.
That shift from I to you is so important. And that's a perfect pivot to part 2, which is all about 6 ways to make people actually like you. And it starts with that trap of self-absorption. I love this stat. The New York Telephone Company studied 500 phone calls, and the word I was used almost 4,000 times.
4,000. We are just obsessed with ourselves. Morning, noon, and after dinner, as Carnegie says.
So what's the antidote?
It's the first principle of this section. Become genuinely interested in other people. If all we do is try to impress people, we're never going to build real, sincere friendships.
And this doesn't have to be some huge, grand gesture, right? It's about focused effort. Like that story about the Duke of Windsor.
Oh, yeah.
Before he toured South America, he spent months learning Spanish just so he could give speeches in their language.
And they loved him for it. Not because he was royal, but because he took the time, he made the effort to meet them where they were.
So for us today, that means if you're going into a meeting, maybe take 5 minutes to look up the other person's interests.
That's the modern version, absolutely. It shows you value them as a person, not just as a means to an end.
Okay, we're going to skip the second principle just for time, but the third one is so simple and so powerful. Remember that a person's name
Is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language.
It's the ultimate personal connection. Even Andrew Carnegie knew this as a kid. He named his pet rabbits after the neighborhood kids so they'd help feed them.
That's brilliant. He knew it was all about making people feel important. He did the same thing in his factories, calling thousands of workers by their first names.
It creates instant rapport. I remember that warning from Benton Love, the banker. He said executives who can't remember names are operating on quicksand.
It just signals you don't care. And if you don't care enough to remember my name, why should I care about you or your business?
Which leads right to the next skill. Be a good listener. Encourage others to talk about themselves.
Giving someone your exclusive, undivided attention, that might be the best compliment you can possibly pay them.
It works because it flips that eye magnet we were talking about.
Exactly. You're giving them the stage that deep down they really want. People are 100 times more interested in themselves than they are in you.
And the way he puts that into perspective is so, well, it's brutal.
It is. A person's own toothache means more to that person than a famine in China that kills 1 million people.
Wow. It's a jarring comparison, but it's an honest look at the human ego. It means if you lead with your problems, you've already lost your audience.
They're already thinking about their own toothache. But if you talk about their toothache,
Then you have their full attention.
you do.
Okay, so building rapport is one thing. But what about when you actually have to convince someone or, lead a team that needs some correction? That takes us to parts 3 and 4.
Right. This is where it gets into diplomacy and leadership. Part 3 starts with some really counterintuitive advice. The only way to get the best of an argument,
Is to avoid it.
avoid it completely. You can't win. Arguing doesn't change people's minds. And you should never, ever say, you're wrong.
That's so hard to do, though, especially when you know you have the facts on your side. How do you stop that instinct to argue?
You look at someone like Benjamin Franklin. He used to love arguing when he was young. Oh, yeah. He was apparently really tactless. But he realized it was just ruining his relationships. So he made a rule for himself to never contradict people directly. Instead of saying, certainly, he'd say things like, it appears to me.
So he used a kind of verbal humility.
He did. And he became one of the most diplomatic figures in American history because of it.
So instead of confronting someone, you use the drop of honey approach. You begin in a friendly way.
Exactly. Like Lincoln said, if you want to win someone to your cause, first convince him that you are his sincere friend.
Once you've established that friendly tone, then you use what Carnegie calls the secret of Socrates.
Yes. Get the other person saying yes, yes, right away.
What's the psychology behind that? Why does that work so well?
It's actually physiological. When someone says no, their whole body, their nerves, their muscles, it all tenses up into a state of rejection. But when they say yes, the body relaxes. It creates an open, accepting attitude. You're building this positive momentum toward your own idea.
That's such a practical tip for any kind of negotiation. Okay, let's shift to part 4, being a leader. When you do have to offer correction, how do you do it without creating resentment?
The first rule is to begin with praise and honest appreciation.
Right. The dentist with the Novocaine.
That's the one. The patient still gets the drilling, but the Novocaine kills the pain. The praise buffers the criticism that's about to come.
And another great technique is to talk about your own mistakes first.
Oh, this is so powerful. It's about vulnerability. Carnegie talks about doing this with his secretary. Before he'd point out a mistake she made, he'd remind her of some bigger blunder he'd made in the past.
It lets the other person save face. It says, hey, I'm not perfect either. We're in this together.
Exactly. It changes the whole dynamic.
Leaders also need to avoid giving direct orders. Look at Owen D. Young, that successful businessman. He never gave orders.
Never. He'd use questions or suggestions. He'd say things like, do you think that would work? Or you might consider this approach?
And that gives the other person a sense of ownership, right?
Total ownership. It respects their ego. It empowers them instead of commanding them. As Saint-Exupéry said, I have no right to say or do anything that diminishes a man in his own eyes.
And we can wrap up part 4 with this last idea. Use encouragement. Make the fault seem easy to correct.
Yes, this is all about inspiring confidence. Don't make the task sound impossible.
Like the story about learning to play bridge. The author didn't want to try, but Lowell Thomas convinced him.
He did. He didn't say, oh, bridge is really complex. He said it would be a cinch for him because he'd already written articles on memory.
He focused on the skills he already had.
Exactly. He made it seem achievable.
So we've covered a ton of ground here. How to handle conflict, build relationships, lead effectively. But the most important point is, this isn't just about reading.
No, not at all. That is so vital. Carnegie insisted this isn't about knowledge, it's about action. The whole point of education, as Herbert Spencer said, isn't knowledge, it's action.
So you have to form new habits.
Which takes persistence. It takes daily, conscious effort.
And Carnegie gives 2 steps for that. First, you have to develop a deep, driving desire to get better at this. You have to really believe that 85% statistic.
You have to want it. And second, you need a system. A weekly review. He tells that story about the Wall Street bank president.
With very little formal education.
Right. But every Saturday night, he'd review his week and ask himself, what mistakes did I make in dealing with people? And what can I learn from that?
That constant self-appraisal, that's the engine for real improvement. You don't just read the book once, you use it like a handbook to check yourself against.
It's a lifetime practice. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, Professor William James from Harvard once said that compared to what we ought to be, we are only half awake.
Meaning we're only using a tiny fraction of our real potential.
Our real mental and physical resources. Carnegie's principles are basically a roadmap to waking up, to accessing that unused potential.
Which leaves a really important question for you, the listener. If you were to pick just one of these principles to focus on this week, maybe it's genuinely listening, or avoiding arguments, or leading with praise, which dormant and unused asset would you try to develop? Which one could help you lead a richer, happier, more fulfilling life? The whole world really does await those who can arouse in others an eager want